Mr. Vidadi, I'd like to know your opinion on how does Iran's axis of resistance actually model directly counter the U.S. strategy of global arrogance?
To start off with, I just want to remind the audience that when the when the U.S. embassy staff were taken by the Iranian protesters on the November the 4th, 1979, only a few weeks later, the Pakistanis attacked the U.S. embassy in Islamabad and burned the embassy to the ground, killing 2 U.S. citizens, both soldiers. However, that country was never sanctioned, and that country was never put into a conflict with the United States. So this idea that Iran, because of the hostage crisis, as it's called by the West, is the reason why the United States has problems with Iran is absolute nonsense. It goes back decades when the United States in 1953 overthrew a democratically elected prime minister and replaced with the Shah, who was returned back to Iran. And this Shah was beholden to the UK and to the United States, and he would do whatever they wanted. They would use his weapons that he paid for from Iranian money, from Iranian oil money, and they would use his planes, and they would attack Vietnamese without his knowledge or consent. And Ayatollah Khamenei, only a day or so ago in his speech, said that there's 2 currents. There's the American current and there's the Islamic Republic current, the Iranian Revolution current. These currents are separate. They aim for different things. The American current wants to impose its hegemony, its rule over the world, colonizing, brutalizing, and killing anyone in its way. And we can see that in Venezuela. We can see that as it's threatening Nigeria. It threatens Iran for the past 50 years. It threatened Lebanon. Unless you do X, Y, and Z, we will, overthrow you and destroy your economy and so forth. However, there's the Islamic Republic current, which says any country that is oppressed, we will aid. And we can see Iran come to the aid of Yemen. We can see Iran come to the aid of Lebanese when they overthrew the Israeli occupation in the south of Lebanon in 1982, so forth. And they even assisted Syria and Iraq when Iraq was invaded by the ISIS, which was created by Hillary Clinton and the US deep state to overthrow the Iraqi state. And so we can see that these 2 currents, the reason why America has problems with Iran is not because of just because of Iranian support Palestine. It's because Iran is the only country that ideologically stands against the ideology of the United States and its allies, the West, of taking over the world. And because of this, as Ayatollah Khamenei said, it will be many years and America has to change its way before Iran and the United States can come to some kind of resolution.
How important, Mr. Vizadi, is the role of students, specifically in a place like Iran, where the revolution is continuing and where people continue to show that they rather resist than to submit to any kind of oppression?
Well, I believe that if you look at, for example, Donald Trump's visit to China in the last few days or last week, you could see him almost groveling towards the Chinese president. And so this demonstrates that the colonial powers, this demonstrates the United States and its European allies only understand power and force. And Ayatollah Khamenei has, for the last 3-4 decades, where he has managed the Islamic Republic and led it as the leader, has always advised the Iranians to advance in economy, advance in scientific development, and advance in cultural development, and advance in military development. This will enable Iran not only be a power that will defend itself against any US or colonial attack, but what it will do is enable Iran to be an aid and supporter for the oppressed, for Iran to be able to provide financial support or economic support to Lebanon, to Iraq, to Yemen, to Syria, or to any of the countries around the world that need its aid, Venezuela, for example. It has to be capable, it has to be advanced in the field that it's aiding these countries in. For example, we look at Venezuela. Venezuela is asking China, Russia, and Iran for military aid so that it could defend itself against the United States. This military aid from Iran didn't happen overnight. This is a concise plan and advice and leadership of Ayatollah Khamenei to enable Iran to become a missile, drone, and defense power that can not only defend itself, as we saw in the 12-day war imposed war by Israel and America, but it can aid other countries such as Venezuela and any other country that needs its help to defend itself against the US oppression. So the fact that Ayatollah Khamenei has repeated this, and I do really hope that the Iranian leadership, the Iranian authorities who are elected and put into positions of power by Iranian voters every 4 years and so forth, they take this advice and heed this advice and use it to benefit the country. They don't. It's very important that the leadership that comes into power in Iran understands the guidance that Ayatollah Khamenei gives. A lot of people sometimes blame Ayatollah Khamenei as the leader of Iran, within Iran, when I travel to Iran, to say, oh, we have the economic problems. And I say to them, is it Ayatollah Khamenei not advising the president and his cabinet and the ministers to do better in the economy? Is he not advising them in all of these fields? So whose fault is it? So if Iranians do take the advice of the leadership of Ayatollah Khamenei, I believe Iran will not only be a regional power, it will become a global power, one of the main global powers in the multipolar world, and it will then have an impact on the whole West Asian and Persian Gulf region.